My name is Patrycja Sosnowska and I am a junior Android developer in Polydia. Today I want to tell you, it's a really important topic for me, I want to tell you how to avoid mistakes when implementing accessibility in Android app. And this presentation is based on my research and my experience in one of the projects in Polydia. I know that today there are persons who work already with accessibility, and it's awesome. But I know that some of you didn't hear about accessibility before, and it's completely fine, so please don't worry. First, I will try to explain accessibility in general, not only in Android, so we'll know the basics. And then we'll turn to practical examples. So let's start. Okay, first of all, I want to explain you what this presentation is about. I will focus only on implementing accessibility in an Android app by supporting TalkBack. Later on, we will discuss what TalkBack is. And the short explanation, A11y is a numeronym here, and it means accessibility. And this shortcut is often used in this presentation. So yeah. Second. TalkBack is used by visually impaired users, so we will focus only on supporting this kind of disability. And later on, we will discuss how we can solve potential problems using Accessibility API in Android. And a little explanation to be clear, what this presentation is not about. It is not about designing for accessibility. Also, we will not talk about accessibility for people with different disabilities than vision loss. And we will also not discuss testing for accessibility. Okay. Let's begin with the general definition of accessibility. It is a mission to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. In other words, accessibility is about making products and the real world more accessible. You can see that I put universally accessible in bold because it is crucial for the definition, which you will see later on. You can wonder why accessibility is important. Of course, accessibility is important for us because we want to reach wider audience with our app. But there are more important reasons. Accessibility is most of all enabling the users to be more independent, productive, and effective. And the goal is to let them feel improvement of the quality of their lives. But the most important reason is that more than 2 billion people in the world are blind or have a partial vision loss. They use Android too. How, you might ask? In the real world, we have a device and we have a user. The device is responsible for displaying some content on the UI to the user so they can react with the screen by making actions. But what is happening when user is visually impaired? User experience is completely different, and we have to find a different way to deliver this information. Speaking of providing information to the user, let me introduce TalkBack, the main subject of this presentation. Our main goal while implementing accessibility is to make our app works well with TalkBack. Visually impaired users use it to navigate their device. It is a screen reader, almost always included on Android devices. But if you can't find it on your device, you can download it from Google Play Store. TalkBack is also known as an accessibility service. But what does it mean? It means that TalkBack runs in the background. It receives callbacks from the system when accessibility events are fired. It happens when user makes some action or something on the UI has changed. For example, system pop-up appears. The lifecycle of TalkBack is managed exclusively by the system. And that's why TalkBack can behave differently depending on the device model and system version. I have observed a lot of issues that had occurred only on Samsung or LG devices with Android 7, and that's why we should remember to test accessibility on the widest range of device models possible. The first time using TalkBack can be misleading, so let me tell you a few words about navigation with TalkBack. The gestures are different when we normally use a phone. All you have to know is that there are two most popular ways which users navigate their device with TalkBack. And the first one is exploring by touch. So when the user is tapping anywhere on the screen, TalkBack announces icons, buttons, or other items which it focuses on. And the second is linear navigation. So the user can swipe a finger to move focus to the next element in the sequence. We can distinguish different types of linear navigation. We can change TalkBack settings and force it to focus only on headings or links or controls. And with default settings, it will focus only on every item on the screen. Okay, so since we know what TalkBack is and how it works in a theory, I prepared a real-time exercise for you with Revolut app. I will play you a short video and you will see how linear navigation in TalkBack works. Please look at a mark of my swiping finger on the lower part of the screen. And additionally, I found 3 mistakes of implementation of accessibility. So please focus on this video for a while. After that, I will tell you what the mistakes are.
Unlock with use passcode, not tick, switch, not tick, button, 1, button, 2, button, 3, button, 4, 5, button, 6, button, 7, button, 8, button, 9.
Okay, thank you for your help. And as you probably suspected, there is a keyboard underneath the screen. So what were the mistakes? The first main mistake is that TalkBack was focused on not visible views. It is completely unacceptable when TalkBack announces action not related to the actual screen. In this situation, it was possible to click on a number, but it could be misleading for users with partial vision loss. Secondly, the mistake was that there is no possibility to move between numbers with one swipe. We need 2 swipes to move focus from 1 to 2. It is one more action that users have to do, and it's completely unnecessary. And last, we could notice wrong type of controls. There was announcement that these dots were switches. And this is also misleading for the type of action you need to take. Another app I would like to talk about is Snapchat. And when I showed this presentation earlier in my company, my peers considered Snapchat a little bit controversial, and they said that this app is based only on visual effects, so accessibility could be not first client's requirement, and it's true. And visually impaired people usually don't make photos, so maybe Snapchat is not a good example to show. But in my opinion, and I have to highlight that it's only my opinion, this app is based not only on visual, but also on sound effects. And visually impaired people would also like to use social media apps. It will be really nice if we took it into account. These people would like to hear some news from their friends and family, and they would like to keep in touch with the world. And it would be a lot easier and faster for them by recording videos, because using keyboard requires some time to get used to. And of course, I don't want to blame Snapchat. I didn't make good enough research about accessible social media before the presentation to discuss it now. And it is not my goal today. It is only my opinion, and it is fine if yours is different. But if you are more interested in this topic, here you have a link to an article made by a visually impaired person about accessibility in social media apps. But now let's move to Snapchat example that I prepared.
Add to your story. Double tap to activate. Adding a...
As you can see, accessibility is not implemented at all in this app. That's why we can't talk about mistakes rather than area of improvement. And what improvements could we add here? Of course, first of all, we could notice that all icons were not labeled. And second thing, a pop-up was displayed, but TalkBack doesn't communicate it at all. It is crucial to inform users about every change on the screen immediately. And lastly, TalkBack was focused on the pop-up, not a clickable view, but it informed user that is clickable. We could hear an announcement, double tap to activate when TalkBack was focused on the pop-up. But in this case, we provide user with information about action that can be performed. Now I want to tell you a story about how I started implementing accessibility in this project and what mistakes my team and I made. First, we have to know what we face. My first experience with TalkBack was a little bit sketchy. I just turned TalkBack on and tried to navigate somehow on a phone. And I thought it is enough. But now I know this is a wrong approach. First, we should check every TalkBack options in settings. It is necessary to know what TalkBack settings the users can have enabled on their phones, and also how they can customize it. And for your first steps with TalkBack, I can recommend you the tutorial available in TalkBack settings, and it's awesome. I also encourage you to check every accessibility option. We should know which TalkBack features users can dismiss while using phone. For example, we can disable vibration feedback, speaking usage hints, or speaking list and grid information. We can also customize TalkBack gestures. And there are also developers' option to improve development process, like displaying speech output instead of speaking it. And everything you have to know about TalkBack is in Android accessibility help documentation. Yes, and as I mentioned earlier, accessibility is about making product and real world universally accessible. Why universally? Because TalkBack users are used to some specific behavior and specific commands. To provide the best user experience, our app should be intuitive and consistent with other apps. We don't want to make users confused by providing something that is not natural for them. And one of my mistakes was that I tried to make navigation faster by forcing focus in not natural way. My approach was complex in implementation, but I was thinking that this makes things better. Unfortunately, on some devices, focus doesn't behave as I wanted, and in fact, I had to resign. Then I checked how the system app deals with my problem, and the solution was completely different. By checking our app, I learned that we don't have to make up complex ideas to improve something at all costs, and the main goal should be consistency. The next mistake we did was that we didn't think about accessibility at the beginning of the project. The client told us about this requirement after a few months. When the app was almost ready, we were close to release. And it is always worth to ask the client about accessibility in advance and have it in mind when the project starts. Remember that the more complex an app is, the more effort it requires to implement accessibility. And I think that some features could be implemented differently if we took into account accessibility before. Implementation would also be faster and more pleasant for developers. Speaking of pleasant, when client informed us that they want accessibility, we created one task in Jira, implement accessibility in the app, in the whole app. And it was estimated for one whole sprint, 9 Mondays, and assigned to one person, and it was me. We realized very fast that it was not the best idea. The biggest mistake was we thought that accessibility is most of all adding labels to views. When we estimated this task, we didn't discuss potential problems such as custom views, edge cases, or, for example, more complex screens. And as you probably suspect, I wasn't able to do this task in time. And of course, accessibility quickly became an information silo in my team. And now we don't underestimate. We are more aware about dividing accessibility tasks and assigning them to every person in the team. But first of all, we should remember that we have to be empathic while implementing accessibility. And I know that it may be frustrating for perfectionists, because I think that a definition of well-implemented accessibility doesn't really exist. And that's why it's sometimes good to close your eyes and put TalkBack on and experience the app like a visually impaired person, just to see how many different kinds of announcement TalkBack communicates, like notifications or descriptions, and how overwhelming it can be. And you will probably find that some apps are extremely annoying at the best and completely broken at worst. We as developers should remember that something can look good when we look at the code, but the final experience, maybe it's not the thing that we want to achieve. And another thing is that accessibility, in my opinion, is always a teamwork. And developers and designers should support each other in ideas and decisions they make. Okay, so since we know the main idea of accessibility, let's turn to the Android part of this presentation. I will tell you about issues I was faced in my current project in Polydia. I chose a few examples, and I think they can be interesting, and I suspect that you will also can be challenged. Okay, first I want to fast discuss XML attributes. In my opinion, it is good to use them. It is just one line of code, so we can achieve our goals with minimum effort. And on the previous slides, I was talking about adding labels to a view. It is possible by adding content description attribute. And I mentioned before, it is possible to navigate TalkBack only by headings. And to make a view heading, we can simply set Android accessibility heading equal to true. Android accessibility live region indicates whether TalkBack should automatically notify about changes to the view. For example, we can use this attribute when text value in text view is changed. And with polite and assertive value, additionally, we can prioritize it. So with assertive value, TalkBack interrupts ongoing speech and notifies the user immediately. Okay, it is natural for the users that TalkBack focuses on items from top to bottom. However, sometimes the design layout is not intuitive and it requires some accessibility modification from us. And for example, when we have button skip for skipping signing in, for example, and this button is placed on top of the screen and TalkBack focuses on it first. In this case, I would consider to change on the order of focusing because the user will not be informed what they actually skip. We can change this order with these attributes. In my opinion, it should be used only in special cases, otherwise it can be misleading for people with partial vision loss. Okay, let's start with code examples. At the very beginning, I recommend writing a helper method to detect if TalkBack is on or off. Here we can check on Accessibility Manager class. If method is enabled and is touch exploration enabled, return true. If so, it means that TalkBack is on. And where did I use it? We had Gravity Snap Helper attached to one of our recycle views. And we noticed that on a few devices, the Snap Helper causes focus loss, or focus was suspended on one of our recycle views elements. So if we detect that TalkBack is off, then we can attach a Snap Helper to this recycle view. Okay, do you remember this pop-up in Snapchat? It was focused immediately. It was not focused immediately after appearing, and we can change it by sending accessibility event type view focused. In this example, our pop-up is a fragment, so the method is invoked on viewCreated method, and it is done on a view that it is first from the top in this pop-up, and in this case, it's headline. Okay. Now case with clickable icons and buttons. When TalkBack is focused on clickable view, first it communicates about the label, and next we can here double tap to activate. Sometimes we want to change this usage hint and replace it with something more descriptive. Instead of saying double tap to activate, TalkBack can say, for example, double tap to watch a movie. And in Android, it is possible to add usage hints by using Accessibility Delegate class. In this class, we can override the uninitialized accessibility node info method, and we can add additional data about the view to the accessibility node info object. This data can be a label for a specific action that the user should perform by clicking on a button, for example. Another issue I want to discuss are hidden clickable views. You can see on the video what I mean. This kind of situation happens often in email apps or messaging apps like Messenger. How to deal with this? After some discussion with the design team and checking over apps, I found the first solution. It is to create a system dialog for these actions. As you can see on the slide, it is a simple dialog with actions listed, nothing complicated. This dialog can be presented by a long click on this element. In email fragment, we can first check if TalkBack is active, and after a long click, action will show on the screen. In email adapter, we can also use our extension function that I mentioned before, the initialize accessibility node info, to assign a label to long click action. You can see the result on the video.
Email 1, enlist 4 items, TalkBack test. Double tap to activate, double tap and hold to set in action. Alert set in action, edit, enlist, delete. Double tap to activate. Email deleted, TalkBack.
Okay, simple. But there is another solution, local context menu. We only need to write add accessibility action method on a viewCompat class. And then we pass our view as the first argument to this function and action label as the second argument. The result is a little bit different, so let me show you now. TalkBack will announce that action on this email view, and to show these actions, we need to swipe up and right.
Email 1, enlist 4 items. Double tap to activate, actions available, use swipe up then right to view. Alert local context menu, action. Alert actions, edit, enlist 3 items. Double tap to act.
Which is better? Despite the fact that in the first solution we have displayed only one dialog, so it is less action to the user, I could recommend you a second solution. Why? Of course, less code is a big advantage, but another reason is that it is possible to turn off usage hints in TalkBack settings. That's why the user can never discover these hidden actions. And another problem I faced, I noticed that TalkBack was focusing on elements from the previous screen. When does it happen? This situation is common in single activity and multiple fragments app. We can add fragments to Backstack with two functions, add and replace. What is tricky while implementing accessibility is that when we do it with add method from previous screen, views from previous screen were still focusable. The reason was that their importance for accessibility didn't change. We can change it by creating an extension function on Fragment Manager class. And what happens here? When Backstack listener detects that Backstack has changed, we can find the last added fragment. Then we can make this fragment root view important for accessibility. And next, we should make all the remaining fragments root views and their children views not important for accessibility. This extension function should be then invoked in onCreateView method in activity and in base fragment. And that's it. Problem solved. And last but not least, I would like to discuss implementing accessibility for custom views. My team and I had a lot of problems with them because for the first time it seems to be a little tricky. The best solution to deal with this case is to choose a control from Android system controls like checkbox, SIGBAR, or progress bar that has the most similar behavior to our custom view. Then we can try to implement accessibility in a way for TalkBack to interpret this custom view as this particular system control. And we can do this with the use of accessibility API methods. And I will show you how we can use them on custom control with behavior similar to SIGBAR. OnInitialize accessibility node info method provides TalkBack with information about the state of the view. Overriding this method allows us to set the additional information about our custom view into the accessibility node info object. We do this by adding actions to this view, scrolling backward when level value is bigger than minimum, and scrolling forward when level value is less than minimum. When we have specific actions enabled on this view, we can perform it by overriding method perform accessibility action. And now we are able to operate our custom control and their value with volume up and volume down buttons. So we enable TalkBack here to treat this view the way as TalkBack treats a SIGBAR. And another useful method is onInitialize accessibility event. We can detect an event that is fired on this view and do something with that. And for example, we can update content description value to announce that value has changed, for example. Okay, after discussing potential problems, I'd like to introduce you my favorite testing tool. And this is an app that is available on Google Play Store, and it is Accessibility Scanner. And the best thing about it is that you don't have to be a developer at all to take advantage of it. So the way it works is you can scan every screen in your app to investigate if there is a way to improve somehow accessibility and it can give you, as you can see, some useful hints and suggestions. Okay, if you are interested in more information, here are some useful links, and I will publish somewhere this presentation after this talk. I don't know yet where. So yeah. And as you can see, the last link is my blog post that appears today in Polydia website. So I encourage you to have a look after this. And of course, I am very interested in your feedback. Sorry. You can email me comments or suggestions at this email. And if you would like to ask me about something with accessibility, I am also happy to help. I don't find myself as an expert in accessibility field, but I answer very fast, so don't hesitate. And I would like also to dedicate my presentation to my Android team from Polydia, and I want to say thank you to Utilo Design Studio for their invaluable help. Thank you for your time very much.